I found these disturbing images in the attic of an old house that I was renovating. They're pictures of a boy and his family who lived here 100 years ago, and they were clearly very disturbed. But why? Well, this is their story. In 1923, a carpenter named Gordon Highway built this house for his bride-to-be. It was an impressive home with an attached barn and even a wishing well out front. And after they married, they had 2 sons, Arnold and Horace, and life seemed idyllic. But then the unthinkable happened. Their son Arnold took his own life at just 14 years old. His brother Horace would later tell the police that he knew something wasn't right with Arnold for quite some time before it happened. He said, quote, "He used to say he was hearing voices. Sometimes in the day when I came home from school, I have heard him talking to someone. When I asked him who was there, he said he didn't know. To this day, nobody knows what those voices told him, but they drove him so insane that one night he got into bed next to his sleeping parents, pulled a heavy quilt over their heads and suffocated them to death. Then he let himself out of the house and ran away. When the police arrived at the scene the following morning, they found the body of his father still holding a cigarette in his hand, frozen forever in a state of shock. Meanwhile, Horace and his mother were both found lying face down in the same room, all 3 of them having died in the early hours of the morning. The only person missing was young Arnold. After searching for him for days without any luck, they eventually tracked him down to an abandoned house nearby where he'd barricaded himself inside. And when the police finally broke down the door and entered, they found him standing in the middle of the room holding a large knife with blood all over it. It was clear what he'd done. But when they asked him why, he simply replied, "I had to." Before being taken away, he looked back at the officers and warned them, "You may think you've got me now, but you never really did. You can't get me." And with that, he disappeared into the back of the police car, and they never saw him again. Some believe that he actually killed other people after this, and the case remains open to this day. So how did he do it? How could he kill his entire family and then escape without leaving a trace? And most importantly, why? These are questions that continue to haunt me as I renovate this house 100 years later. As I cleared out the attic, I began to notice strange things happening all around me. Tools would fall from the ceiling for no reason. Heavy footsteps would echo through the wooden floorboards and doors would slam shut on their own. But it wasn't until I found this dusty trunk hidden in the corner that the true horror of this house was revealed. Inside were these disturbing photos, including this one of the Highway boys and their friends standing next to their homemade coffin. And as I looked closer, I noticed something strange about their eyes. It was almost as if they were glowing an unnatural green. Now, I'm not saying that ghosts exist, but perhaps whatever evil force possessed Arnold also infected these pictures, making them cursed. Because ever since I found them, my life has taken a dark turn. My friends and family have noticed that my skin has become unnaturally pale, and my eyes have turned a sickly yellow. They've also pointed out that I haven't slept properly since I started working on this house. In fact, every night I'm awoken in a cold sweat by the sound of a little boy whispering my name directly into my ear. And the scariest part is that whenever I try to show these images to other people, they always seem confused. They can't see or feel anything sinister about them, and they don't understand why I'm so frightened. In fact, they just laugh and say that the pictures look perfectly normal, which makes me wonder if maybe I'm going insane like Arnold. To be honest, this isn't the first time I've seen ghosts while renovating haunted houses. In fact, I've seen so many that I've started to lose count. But unlike most of the other houses I've worked on, this one feels different. There's a malevolent presence here that I cannot escape. For example, last week I was working in the kitchen when suddenly every single glass window and pane shattered at the same time. And when I looked up, I saw the ghost of a woman standing in the doorway staring directly at me. She didn't look sad or angry. She just stood there silently with a blank expression on her face. Then, as I continued clearing out the house, I found several of these old diary entries written by a woman named Florence. They told the story of how she moved into the house with her husband and son, how much they loved living there, and how they often felt a strong connection to the land itself. But then the tone of the diaries changed. She started writing about how the house was filled with evil spirits that were trying to drive her insane, and she spoke of how she could feel them watching her from the walls as she went about her daily routine. But the most haunting entry was this one. She wrote, "I tried to warn my husband and son about the spirits, but they wouldn't listen. They said that I was the crazy one and that there was nothing wrong with this house. But they were wrong because last night they vanished. I woke up in the middle of the night and went to check on them. But when I called out their names, there was no reply. And when I went to their bedrooms, I found their beds empty. All that I could find were these strange symbols drawn on the walls and floor. And I fear that they followed the spirits and have now been taken away." And sadly, that wasn't the end of the story. When I visited the local library to research the history of this house, I discovered that the spirit of Florence is still here today. In fact, the librarian told me that she often sees visitors leave in a panic after having witnessed her ghost. She said, "People describe her as a tall, thin woman wearing a long white dress, and they say that she looks very sad. If you ever see her, you should run away immediately, because she brings bad luck to anyone who stays here too long." And as if that wasn't enough, just yesterday, I uncovered another diary hidden behind the fireplace in the living room. This one belonged to the original owner of the house, Gordon Highway. And in his diary, he described how happy he was to have built such a special place for his wife and kids. But as the weeks went on, the entries became more and more disturbing. He wrote about how he could feel eyes watching him as he walked through the house and how he kept hearing strange noises coming from the walls. He also started drawing these strange symbols in the margins of his diary, the same symbols that Florence had described in her own journal. But it was this final entry that really shocked me. Gordon wrote, "I think I know what's haunting this house. When I built it, I used wood from an old church that had been abandoned in the forest. I thought it would add character to my home, but I was wrong. The priest who blessed this house refused to come back after he saw the materials that I had used. He said that I had brought evil into this house, and that none of us would make it out alive. And now I'm starting to believe him. I keep seeing the ghosts of children in the corner of my eye, and sometimes I hear whispers calling my name in the middle of the night. I don't know how much longer I can stay here. I'm afraid that I'll go mad if I do. And tragically, that's exactly what happened. Just 2 months later, Gordon was found dead in the basement of his house. He'd hanged himself with a length of rope, leaving behind a note that simply read, "It's too late. The house has won." And so I ask you, is this house cursed? And if so, why? Is it the spirits of the children, or could it be something more sinister lurking in the walls?